Hi YouTube, I'm making a video about Trae Young and how he just announced that he's going to be making it to the NBA. And because of this, I want to make a video explaining why he's going to be the next great player and why he's the next Steph Curry. So 1, he's light skinned, just like Steph Curry. 2, he's a point guard, just like Steph Curry. 3, he can shoot the 3 ball and he can space the floor, just like Steph Curry. But 4, and more importantly, he has great work ethic.
A wise woman once told me that disappointment cannot exist without expectations. A life lesson that I hold very near and dear to myself even to this day, and something that I love to exercise around this time of year. Because around this time, as the NBA season is coming to a conclusion, along with March Madness, we all know that college players will be announcing their availability in the upcoming draft class. And with those announcements, you're going to have plenty of people sending out tweets, writers writing columns, hyping up the prospects entering the NBA. And I'm pretty sure you can already tell, this is easily the most frustrating period through the NBA season. And what makes it even more frustrating and even disappointing is that you have multiple people sit here and compare these prospects and teenagers to all-time great players, despite the fact that they've never played a minute in the NBA. How they're supposed to be the next Hakeem Olajuwon, Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, and it's really frustrating and even insulting. Before you sit there and tell me how this big man is supposed to be the next Shaquille O'Neal, please do your due diligence and look at the numbers and the impact that Shaq had as soon as he entered the league before you insult one of the greatest players in NBA history. And this has been a massive problem since the early 2000s after Michael Jordan retired and everyone was looking for his replacement. However, I personally feel like we should have already grown out of this phase in the NBA culture. This is no knock on Mike Zimba, but nearly a year ago he dropped a video explaining how Lonzo Ball is supposed to be the next Steph Curry with a 40-inch vertical. And I could easily say that that was his worst video that he's ever uploaded on his channel. Again, this is no shot at Zimba, as that video was fairly entertaining and he did some solid editing. But the problem with that video is it's not only insulting Steph Curry, as he's never shot below 40% from behind the arc his entire career, but it also makes it extremely difficult for anyone to highlight how great of a player Lonzo Ball can potentially be as an individual. And the reason why it makes it difficult is because of the ridiculous expectations that many people consistently put on Lonzo entering the NBA, comparing him to Steph Curry and Magic Johnson, and because of those expectations, many people felt it necessary to label him a bust. And I'm not even necessarily blaming them, because if your expectations were that he was going to enter the NBA as an all-time great player, then I thoroughly understand where you're coming from. But what makes it even more frustrating and gross when you sit there and compare Lonzo to Steph Curry is that you're overlooking Lonzo's greatest asset, which is his passing ability. Sure, both of them are light-skinned point guards who had the ability to shoot the ball, but if you ever watch Lonzo before he even entered the NBA, it's very obvious that his greatest assets to the game was his passing ability, his high basketball IQ, and his ability to make his teammates better. And entering the NBA, those were my expectations, and I'm happy to say, as his rookie season concludes, he's been able to do everything that I have been expecting out of him, plus more, as he's been a solid defender as well. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely massive flaws in his game and he does have to become a more efficient scorer, but I wasn't gravitated to his 3-point shot entering the league just so I can make a comparison to Steph Curry. And let's be honest, the only reason why you were gravitating to his 3-point shot is because of the style of play that he played in college and at high school, and his form is a little weird. But again, the only reason why you may have labeled him a bust because your expectations were ridiculously high as he entered the NBA, which thus brings us back to Trae Young. I like Trae Young. I think Trae Young is a solid player. I think he has massive flaws in his game as well, so that's something that we shouldn't overlook. But for the most part, Trae Young is a solid basketball player who should be able to contribute to a team sooner than later. However, due to his massive flaws, especially his questionable passing abilities as he turns the ball over at a ridiculous rate, I don't necessarily see how anyone can claim that he's a quote-unquote franchise player, let alone should be compared to one of the next all-time greats. But if he's drafted by a team that already has established players at other positions and he's able to slide in at that point guard slot and being able to space out the floor and continue to grow as a pick and roll ball handler, he will be fine as an NBA player. But when you sit there and try to find a cheap, clickbaity, racially undertoned way to describe how these prospects play basketball, because for whatever reason, every young light-skinned point guard who can shoot threes is compared to Steph Curry, every foreigner who is 7 feet tall who can space out the floor is compared to Dirk, or every 6'8" to 6'10" thin, skinny, small forward is supposed to be compared to Kevin Durant, not only is it insulting to the all-time great players, but you're making it extremely difficult for the individual prospect who is a teenager, because more than likely they're a one-and-done student, to live up to these ridiculous expectations that you have set out for themselves, and thus making it easier for you to label them a bust 3 to 4 years down the line, despite the fact that they may actually have a competent career. Which thus leads me back to the wise words that the woman once told me. Disappointment cannot exist without expectations. The higher expectations that you have for these prospects make it easier for people to label them a bust. And in my opinion, I honestly believe if you think that Trae Young is supposed to be a franchise player that is comparable to any comparison to Stephen Curry or any all-time great, then yes, you can label him a bust. But I honestly believe it has nothing to do with Trae Young underperforming. I just believe your expectations are way too high.
For myself, I think I'm more like a extremely poor man version of Dirk Nowitzki. I feel I can shoot like him, you know, not as good as him, but, you know, I feel like I, you know, had a smaller version of him, I guess.
One measuring stick for Morrison. Another just happens to be one of the best players in NBA history, Larry Bird. Larry Bird. Larry Bird.
What?